Welcome back to Tokyo on Fire. Here on Tokyo on Fire, we don't shy away from those topics that perhaps are a little bit delicate. People don't talk about openly in public, for example, abdication of the current emperor. There's also a topic that's been referred to us on several occasions concerning Nippon Kaigi. This is an association of politicians and people who are involved in the legislature dealing with how Japan should be viewed internally among Japanese and how it should be portrayed externally among their trade partners and the rest of the world. It is actually a revisionist far-right organization that wants Japan to reassert itself on the world stage, Michael.
Well, the Nippon Kaigi, the Japan Conference is the way they translate it into English, is an outgrowth of what was a student movement. And it's based actually in the Shinto Shrine Association. Mm-hmm. It seems to be an outgrowth from the desire of some members or some priestly lines within the Shinto religion to reassert basic Japanese values, what are, in their view, Japanese values. And it's not just an association of politicians and academics, it's also got a lot of businessmen involved. There are about 38,000 Nippon Kaigi members nationwide, and it is somewhat secretive. Mm-hmm. It has a website, but a lot of the parts of the website go to nowhere. They aren't really web savvy. They are certainly not trying to be very demonstrative or explanatory about what the organization is, and no one would give a hoot about them, except, of course, that their honorary chairman is Prime Minister Abe himself, right, and that a large number of members of the cabinet,
a huge percentage, right,
are members, but then a lot of members of the LDP are, and there's this idea that it represents some kind of secret society, that it is in charge of Japan. In fact, Jake Adelstein of the Daily Beast wrote a very long article arguing that point. Mm-hmm. And while that would be a great story and may partially be true, we have to be really careful about what we say about that organization.
Sure. It's kind of like the Knights Templar, wouldn't you say? I mean, they are committed to a kind of ethos. They're committed to a view of Japaneseness that they want to portray to the young people, and they want society to be reflected in that view.
Well, they certainly reflect a vision of what Shinto means. And for those who don't know, Shinto, the way of the gods, as it's translated, it's a religious tradition, but it's split up into thousands of variations. Mm-hmm. And the idea that there is a Shinto is a construct of the 19th century. And it's part of the nation-building program that the country underwent in the Meiji Restoration. There was the establishment of a state Shinto, mm-hmm, from out of all of these different kinds of mythologies and all these different religious practices. These were all agglomerated and regularized and made into a state religion that everyone had to participate mm-hmm. in, and everyone had to be included in order to have a national religious tradition. The people who are taking part in Nippon Kaigi take that very brief period of Japanese history from 1868 to 1945 and say that's Japan. Mm-hmm. That's the real mistake. All the history that came before in terms of religious practice and what has happened since 1945, that's not Japan. It is a ridiculous argument. But that's the one that Nippon Kaigi makes, and that perhaps is what is most dangerous about the organization.
Right. There are a lot of things that are positive and actually quite beautiful about the philosophy of Nippon Kaigi, but it's the things that are negative or people perceive as negative that really are the main detractors. For example, let's revise the Constitution so we have our own Constitution. I don't know what's so wrong about that.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all.
Okay, let's make the emperor the symbol of our country and the head of our state. If that's what they decide, I guess that's okay by me too.
Well, in the case that the United States government did not think that was appropriate, and that's why the Constitution as it now stands has him as the symbol of the state, not the head of state,
Right.
or as he existed under the Meiji Constitution, as basically the sole actor of the state. That in the Meiji Constitution, it is very clear that the emperor is the sovereign, whereas in the modern Constitution, it is the people who are sovereign. These differences are, again, they're products of the 19th century. They're not something that is traditionally Japanese. And again, Nippon Kaigi members do not differentiate this kind of state building that was done in the 19th century from Japanese history. They think it's all one great continuum and that there's no interruption. There was a huge interruption. And they are talking about a very specific time period, which, let's face it, brought to Japan to a situation where it was in direct conflict with the United States and sort of lost that.
Yes, right. Well, let's talk about those aspects of Nippon Kaigi that are really negative, the things that make people wonder, is this, are you a member of this secret organization? Then I'm not going to like you. By the way, the current frontrunner for the governor of Tokyo is a member of the Nippon Kaigi.
Yeah, the Nippon Kaigi, a lot of people, and not necessarily people whom one would associate with the right wing. The current, and probably not future, Secretary General of the LDP, Tanigaki Sadakazu, is a member. The Fukuda Yasuo and the Fukuda family is very, very much associated with close relations with China and close relations with South Korea. They're members of
the
this.
former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court was at the head.
Yeah, and that there is a possibility that this is just some kind of group that you have to join in order to be politically viable. That indeed you don't have to imbibe all of their rhetoric and all of their ideology in order to be a member and also to be in good standing with them. Again, one of the things that people don't emphasize about the Nippon Kaigi is how old its membership is. If you take out the politicians who are there because they want to get the support of these individuals, and you look at just the general membership, I swear the median age is 75. They are really, really old folks. And to think that this is somehow some kind of secret cabal that's going to take over the country, maybe, but they're going to need a lot of help, and I don't know where that help's going to come from.
Well, it's referenced frequently whenever the issue of revising the Constitution or Article 9, whenever that issue comes up, Nippon Kaigi is always kind of thrown into the hopper as well.
Well, the Nippon Kaigi presents a very unrepentant and easily, targetable group of individuals who do hold that the Meiji State, which in my view marched Japan eventually to catastrophe, was in no way a bad way of organizing the Japanese people. I tend to disagree, and I certainly think that for the majority of Japanese citizens, the Meiji State was a complete failure and led them not only internationally to disaster, but nationally. And it's a very interesting situation. We have actually Nippon Kaigi members on NHK's board. In fact, one of the persons that Mr. Abe met yesterday, the head of JR Kyushu, has just been named to the NHK board. And he, as a part of the process of becoming an NHK board member, has said that he is quitting the Nippon Kaigi. But nevertheless, people with that kind of sympathies are now on NHK. But if you watch NHK programs, particularly their morning dramas, they are so anti-war, so anti-Meiji State. They are just virulently against what would supposedly be the Nippon Kaigi's ideology, that there's this wonderful disconnect between the people who are supposedly in charge, the Board of Trustees, and the actual product of the nation. So that one senses that whatever these persons, their positions might be, whether they might be on this board, that advisory commission, or this advisory commission, their eventual effect upon the Japanese people and about Japanese life is minuscule.
On the spectrum of far right and far left, the political spectrum, you have the sound trucks that are out lambasting the Russian embassy and causing all sorts of traffic panic by pronouncing their statements about let's return to the emperor, that sort of thing. Where does Nippon Kaigi stand, and is there anybody farther to the right of them?
I don't know if there really is farther right. You can argue about the Nippon no kokoro o taisetsu ni suru to, they call themselves Japanese kokoro because the long phrase, the party that takes as important the Japanese heart, mind, spirit is a bit long.
Right.
You could argue about which one of them is more to the right, but basically they're on the same side. What's important, though, is here we are. Today is Thursday, the 28th of July. This is the first day of the start of operations for the Comfort Women Fund. The Comfort Women issue is the core humiliation versus pride issue for these groups, for this right wing. And Mr. Abe, the prime minister, has absolutely undercut them on this. He cut a deal with the South Korean government saying, okay, we're going to establish a fund for the surviving comfort women, and we'd like you to remove the statue of the comfort woman who's in front of the...
But even if you don't, it's okay because we're moving forward.
That's right.
It is a sign of appeasement, perhaps.
Yeah, and all of these issues that are crucial to the Nippon Kaigi. In every instance, whether it's going to Yasukuni, whether it's comfort women, Mr. Abe has not delivered for them. Now, if he, the honorary chairman, will not deliver and cannot deliver, who will and who can?
Right.
So, yes, the Nippon Kaigi is interesting, it's fascinating, it presents a possibility of someone being able to say, I know what really drives Japan. The rest of this is all surface. Behind it is this secret society. That's great, okay, if you want to be able to sell an idea. But in terms of their actual output and influence, Nippon Kaigi underdelivers for the firepower that it supposedly has.
Thank you for that. We'll continue to watch this and identify certain groups that wield influence in Japanese politics because it's interesting, and to watch what they're doing, how they're achieving their objectives is important in the overall scheme of understanding how Japan actually works. Please stay tuned.